Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be discussing some of the new products and features that are going to be available within our Gen24 inverter lineup. Just to introduce myself, my name is David Porter. I'm one of the technical advisors here at Fronius, and alongside me is Andrea Waller, who is our marketing and FSP coordinator. So before we start with the presentation, we'd like to have just a quick poll just to understand what your knowledge is of Fronius Gen24 so far. We've got a lot of people on the call today. So just want to ask the question, have you installed Gen24 inverters before? And you should see a poll appear on your screen. If you could just pick one of the multiple choice answers, that would be fantastic. So no, not at all. You're completely brand new to the Gen24s. You've done one or two previously, or you've done many and you're already an expert with the products. Okay, so nearly half of you have no experience with the Gen24 so far, so that's great. So welcome along, and hopefully we can show you a new product that will be really useful to you for your solar installations. Of course, we've got a few there. We've done one or two. Hopefully we can go into a bit more detail with some of the projects there. And of course, it's good to see that there's some of you that have had a lot of installs in place already. So that's good to see. We've got a bit of a mix today. First of all, I'd like to mention a few production milestones we've had recently. We've manufactured our 500,000th Gen24 inverter. So the inverters have been around for a few years now, both on the single phase and the three phase in the domestic and commercial market. And as a result of the success, we've produced some of these lovely gold finished Gen24s to commemorate the 500,000th inverter. And it's really been a very successful product for us. So it's been very easy for our installers to work with. It's been extremely reliable. It's been very, very impressive out in the field. And also end customers are enjoying the energy management options and flexibility that the device brings. So hopefully we're going to be building on that now with the new features that you're going to see today, and they're going to hopefully enhance the product further. Also wants to mention one of our installers who have recently installed their 200th Gen24 installation in the UK. So this is Cortec Electrical Services, who are based in West Yorkshire. They've worked with a range of domestic and commercial customers in various different locations. And in each one of these, they've been using the Gen24s, coupled with batteries, coupled with our Watt Pilot EV charger, our own Pilot hot water diverter, to give customers flexible energy management solutions. So we're really pleased with the partnership we have with those guys, and we want to develop more of our Fronius system partners, and those of you on the call today, to make sure that you're also going to be installing large numbers of Gen24s in the coming months and years. And another great thing we've got to say thank you to Cortec for. Around Christmas time, they brought us our own beautiful Gen24 cake over to the Fronius offices here. So that was extremely delicious, and we say thank you to them for that. And if any of you are installing Toros, our 100 kilowatt inverters, and you want to make a cake, feel free to send those through to us as well. We'll gladly take those off your hands. So let's get on and have a look at the new versions of the Gen24 that are available. So up until now, our installers have been using the Gen24 Plus. We're now introducing the Gen24, which is a non-hybrid device. So this device does everything that the Gen24 Plus can, but without the battery hybrid functionality. So it still has single phase and three phase options. It has two MPP trackers, so we can have different string lengths or maybe isolate a small shaded area onto that second tracker. We've got our PV point dedicated backup on board. So even without a battery, you can still power a socket just from solar in the event of a grid failure. We have G98, G99 certification within the UK and G100 compliance for export limitation. All these devices have EM 50549 certification for the Republic of Ireland as well. So they're really suited to installation in both countries. So why would you be buying the Gen24 instead of the Gen24 Plus? Well, normally this will be if a customer doesn't know if they're going to be installing a battery. They're new to this, the solar self-generation setup, and they want to buy the solar, get the system generating, and then maybe decide later on down the line if they want to have a battery or not. So instead of having to put all their eggs in one basket and buying a more expensive hybrid inverter, they can start with the basic unit, and then in future they have the ability to use the Fronius Up Storage firmware update, which is a paid upgrade which turns the Gen24 into a Gen24 Plus. This means there's no hardware changes. It's purely the paid software update and then connecting the battery. It means you don't have to swap a standard inverter in and replace it with a hybrid device. The one unit has all the connections, all of the hardware. It's purely that software license that will change. We're implementing the web shop currently for the UK and Ireland. So we're expecting this service to be available from autumn this year. So if your customer definitely knows that they want to be installing a battery this year, the next few months, we'd say, of course, go for the Gen24 Plus. If the customer's unsure, well, let's get their solar installed, let's get them generating, get the Gen24, and then we can always do the storage update in future. And what's the difference in terms of costs between the two options? Well, the Gen24 is about 30% cheaper than the Gen24 Plus. If you then add the Up Storage software upgrade, there's a cost to that, which makes it slightly more expensive than having just bought a Gen24 Plus in the first place. So as I say, if your customer definitely wants to have a battery, go for the Gen24 Plus straight out of the box, straight at first installation. But if they're unsure, then they've always got the option with the non-hybrid unit. The next feature to have a look at is the new power classes that are available on our Primo single phase unit. So we now have an 8 kilowatt and 10 kilowatt Gen24 and Gen24 Plus. So again, these are GE99 and GE100 certified, and they enable you not only to generate a higher power, connect more panels to your inverter, but they also enable slightly higher charge and discharge rates into a battery. So if you have an HVS 7.7 battery or an HVM 19.3, you'll see that you're getting a higher output power with these new higher power classes. Also, because we can oversize our inverters to 150%, we can install up to 15 kilowatts of solar onto one Gen24 Primo 10 kilowatt unit. So a really good sized PV system for a single phase installation. Next is looking at some of our backup options that are now available. So we have already built into all of the Gen24s the PV point circuit. We have something new called PV point comfort, and we'll go into a little bit more detail with that shortly. We have manual changeover, so we can use an off-the-shelf changeover switch, and we can use that to isolate the house in an island mode. And we now also have the first batch of auto changeover units received into Fronius UK. So let's have a look at each of these three in a little bit more detail. First of all, we have the PV point comfort circuit. So the standard PV point circuit is the three terminal outlet you can see on the screen there, and that provides power only when the grid is failed, when there's a power cut. So in normal operation, PV point is switched off and there's no power from it. When the grid dies, that circuit becomes live and you're able to connect in essential loads, maybe your fridge freezer, for example. The only problem is once the grid is re-established, that circuit will switch off and you'll go back to the mains. The new PV point comfort circuit enables that outlet to remain permanently live. So it has the ability to switch from grid mode to off-grid mode. You can leave maybe a small distribution board or some sockets constantly permanently powered off PV point. And then it will automatically change over as and when required with the grid failure. You can get up to 3 kilowatts single phase on the PV point outlet, and that's the same whether you have a Gen24 Primo or SIMO 3-phase unit. One thing to bear in mind is we are currently reviewing the earthing requirements for the UK and Ireland. Obviously, we have a lot of TNCS systems within both these countries, and as a result, we need to make sure that we have the correct earthing arrangement set up. So we're expecting a small delay on the start of sales of this device while we just confirm all those settings. If you have a TT system, then there's nothing to worry about there. The next thing to look at is the manual changeover, and this is an off-the-shelf 100 amp 4-pole double throw switch, so basically similar to a generator switch. So what we're doing is we're connecting in position 1, we're connecting our grid supply. So we have the 4 poles, we have our phase, our neutral, and our earth being connected. We also have our wired shutdown, which is also connected. So that provides a signal to the inverter to stay live. What happens is when we switch into the 0 position, we open all of the poles, we open circuits so that we're disconnected from the grid. We're also disconnected from our wired shutdown, so that switches the inverter off. And we're also on the right-hand side got our digital signals to tell the inverter if or if not to start generating backup. Of course, everything's open, so in 0 position, there's a full shutdown. When we move into position 2, we remain disconnected from the grid. We close the wired shutdown, so the inverter is told it's good to go. We also have 2 digital input signals, 12-volt signals. These are to confirm that we're in backup mode. They receive a 12-volt signal, and we also now have a local connection to earth. And so that provides your local earth rod for earthing in the backup mode. So this is a really simple solution. It's low cost for these components. One thing to bear in mind is the smart meter needs to be on the grid side, and if it fails, so when the grid fails, the smart meter dies. We have the loss of voltage on the grid side, and we also have those digital signals. So we have actually 4 checks to make sure that we're in the correct mode. So it's a very robust, safe solution. If you're going to go for a 3-phase option, then you'll probably need to look for a 5-pole switch, which also has some auxiliary contacts for the digital signals. But again, that's something that can be purchased off the shelf quite readily. The next option is something that we've been long waiting for. It's been taking some time to develop, and that is our automatic changeover solution. So because of the UK's wiring regulations, we have had to look at sourcing our own device for the UK and Ireland. We couldn't depend on the European devices, which again were designed for TT networks. So we've been working with Westminster Controls, who are a UK controls company, and we've developed now a solution both for single phase and for 3-phase. Although we're starting with the single phase, we've got a first batch of those that we would like to do some testing with some experienced Gen24 install companies. If you have any projects where you're looking to install backup, please let us know and we can look at supporting you with those. We want to get some feedback on this initial batch, and then if everyone's happy with the solution, we'll go to full production, which will then go through our distribution network as per the inverters themselves. So let's have a quick look at what's inside the device. So you can see here it is a metal enclosure. Within the unit, we have our incoming 100 amp supply through an MCB. We then feed through a Fronius smart meter. So this replaces the need for an external smart meter on site. That's built into the device. We then feed through the main surge protection. So that is protecting us from any surges on the grid side. And then we're splitting out into non-essential and essential backup. So we have 50 amps on essential loads, which are going to stay live during a grid failure, and we have the other 50 amps for the non-essential loads. We'd suggest things like EV chargers, heat pumps, and other big loads are put on the non-essential side so that you're not draining the battery excessively quickly with those. We then have the connection for the Gen24 and also for the surge protection there for the incoming power from the Gen24. We have two sets of contactors there, so we have redundancy. If we have one contactor fail, the second run will still operate and put you into island mode. And also behind here, we have our digital input signal connections. So everything is in one box. It should be a very simple, straightforward installation, and we're looking forward to getting these first units installed with our Fronius system partner network. So those are the new updates in terms of the hardware within the Fronius inverters. We also have a new software, new firmware coming up for the inverters. And we'll have firmware update 1.31 available a little bit later in the spring. And this has a number of key features that should be beneficial to installers and also to end customers. So let's have a look at those new features in a little bit more detail. First of all, we have the export limitation improvements. At present, we can install a Fronius smart meter and connect that to one inverter, one Primo Gen24, one Simo Gen24, or a Toro inverter. All the other devices are currently not communicating with that, so all the export limitation has to be through that one device. With the new firmware, we will be able to send a control signal over the local area network using Modbus, and that will then communicate out to all the other inverters on site. This means that we can have larger systems which are export limited and controlled by that one master inverter. This will also be possible using the older snap inverters. So if you have a data manager, the data manager can receive the signal as well. The key thing is that the master unit must be a Gen24 or a Toro with the latest control software. Another new feature that's coming is asymmetric generation. So this is specifically for the Simo Gen24, the three-phase unit. And this enables the inverter to output different power on the three phases. And the real benefit with this is if you have one of the older meters, utility meters, that only measures imported energy, doesn't measure export. The problem you have with the older meters is that if you have an unbalanced load within the property, so the yellow at the house, the loads are different on the three phases, the inverter feeding out symmetrically will end up with one phase maybe importing, two phases exporting at the grid. And with those older meters, you will be charged for the energy that's being imported, in this instance, on phase one. With phase accurate metering and with the asymmetric generation from the inverter, we're able to supply each of the phases as the demand increases and decreases. This means that you have net zero at the grid. You physically have reduced the issue of unbalance, and as a result, you should improve the billing situation you see with those older meters. The solution is also beneficial to an increasing number of new build sites where you have a three-phase connection to the property, but only have your domestic loads on one of the three phases. This means that if you use an oversized Gen24 Simo, that unit will be able to feed primarily to the phase with the loads. And then in future, if a three-phase EV charger or heat pump was connected, it will be able to spread that load across the three phases, giving that bit of flexibility within the system. And of course, it's also beneficial to anyone who wants to be installing and using as much energy as possible, not sending it back to the grid on one of the phases. The good news is it's only a software update. And also change to the settings at the inverter. It's not, there's no hardware changes required for this solution. It's also important to bear in mind that the maximum asymmetry, so the difference in power output between the three phases, is limited to a third of the power of the inverter. So basically, the maximum power per phase So if you had a 6 kilowatt inverter, we can use up to 2 kilowatts per phase, and that would be the maximum asymmetry. So phase 1, for example, at 2 kilowatts, phase 2 and phase 3 not outputting any energy. As the generation increases, it will then increase on across all 3 phases beyond that point, until it balances out to 6 kilowatts spread equally across the 3 phases. The other important update this month is that we will start to see unique passwords for the Wi-Fi access point on the inverters. So when you're commissioning a new inverter, you access the Wi-Fi access point with your phone or with your laptop to communicate with it directly. Up until now, we've used a password 12345678. In future, for regulatory requirement, we will need to use a unique password for each individual Gen24. So that password will in future be printed on the side of the inverter. So where you find you've currently got the nameplate of the device, you'll also find on there the unique password listed. So make sure to take details of that. If you're struggling to connect to your inverter, it's probably because you're using the wrong password. So this new regulatory requirement, the PTSI requirements, come into force on the 29th of April this year in the UK. And the UK is actually pretty much leading in terms of these cybersecurity requirements. And I can confirm that our team having discussed with UK officials, regulatory officials, we are compliant with these regulations. So you can rest assured that you have a high level of cybersecurity using Fronius inverters. So also just to mention that all of the data sheets for our devices, all of the technical information is available to you to download. The best place to go would be the MyFronius website, so www.myfronius.com. Log in with your SolarWeb account details if you have SolarWeb already. If you don't, please register for our monitoring platform, and then you can access all of our tools. Once you've logged in, you can go to the download section and you have easy access. You have a really strong search tool there, which will help guide you to the right documents. You can find everything from grid connection certificates to data sheets and manuals and much more. So please check out MyFronius, and hopefully you'll be able to find all the information that you require for your installations. So let's have a quick summary of what we've seen today. So first of all, we have the new Gen24 alongside the existing Gen24 Plus, which provides a low-cost option for installation of solar, and then you can do that paid upgrade to turn it into a battery hybrid enabled device at a later date. And that's ideal for customers who don't yet know if they need the battery or not. We have the new 10 and 8 kilowatt Gen24 Primo classes, and those are available right away from distribution. So please get in contact with your preferred distributors. They will certainly be able to help you with those. Backup is now possible, one of 3 different ways. We have still got the manual switch option for manually switching between grid and off-grid mode. We have the auto changeover, which we have that first batch available for installation for experienced FSPs, and we will soon have the new PV point comfort circuit as well. That will be coming later in the spring this year. And of course, finally, we have those firmware updates which bring new features as well. So in particular, the dynamic feed-in limitation for multiple inverters. That's a really key feature, especially on larger installations. And also 3-phase customers, asymmetric generation will now be possible with the firmware update as well. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. What I'll do now is see if Andrea has any questions coming through.
Hello, yes, David, we've got a couple of questions. The first one from Neil McKee, and he's asking, are the Gen24 and Gen24 Plus also G99 NI certified?
Yes, so had an update just earlier this week that the Northern Ireland certification has been approved very recently this week, I believe. So yes, available in all markets now.
Thank you. And the second question from Katie is, will the password change come into effect in Ireland as well?
Yes, so the password change will take effect for all Gen24 devices in all countries. So yes, absolutely, in Ireland it will also take effect.
Thank you. And a question from Ian. Can multiple Gen24s be installed on the same site, please?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so you can install multiple Gen24s. That's not a problem at all. However, only one of those devices can have a battery connected currently. So you can generate from as many inverters as you want. That's not a problem. We can incorporate all of those into the same system on SolarWeb for monitoring, but the battery currently is only connected to one device.
Okay, thank you. The next question, when will the firmware update re-export limitation come into effect, please? And that's from Dara Smith.
Yes, so the planned update is early in May. Of course, with any planned dates, these can change, but currently we're expecting that probably the first or second week in May 2024. So hopefully not too long to wait now.
Great, okay. Can I connect two Gen24 Plus together in leader follower mode? That's from Ian.
So the two Gen24s will operate independently if you have them on the same system. With the software updates, you'll be able to use one as the leader with export limitation, but in terms of battery charging, it will only be one that will charge the battery. You can't have two battery connected devices. But the good news is the second inverter, which doesn't have a battery, can still feed its surplus energy to the main Gen24. And this is done through AC coupling. There's no hardware changes required. It's simply a case that the battery-enabled inverter draws in surplus energy, looking at the smart meter readings. So we can do everything with the system except for power a second battery from a second inverter.
Okay, thank you. Question from James, is the PV Point Comfort a hardware or software firmware update?
So the PV Point Comfort will be a retrofittable board. It's a small circuit board which will fit into the AC connection area. So I can probably show that again on the screen. So it is this circuit board shown on your screen now, and that actually bolts into some pre-existing mounting points within the inverter and connects into the existing AC connections. So that is a new piece of hardware which is retrofittable to existing inverters.
Great, thank you. Next question. What is the maximum off-grid power if they cannot be paralleled?
So that will be limited to the battery-enabled inverter's power class. So I would recommend, if you want lots of power, go for a 10 kilowatt Gen24, either single or three-phase, and then you'll be limited to 10 kilowatts of power, assuming you've got maximum power from your battery and you've also got some solar energy coming in. It really depends on the size of the battery. If I jump back to the page where we had the power classes of the battery, you'll see that different batteries have different power outputs. So the smallest unit with the smallest inverter is 3.11 kilowatts of power. You can then obviously contribute also with some solar energy if it's during daytime up to the power class of the inverter. So the best solution would be a 10 kilowatt Gen24 with a good sized battery and then also with solar connected to it.
Great, thank you. Next question from Eamon. Will the firmware 1.31 allow multiple batteries and multiple Gen24s?
No, unfortunately, we're still limited to the one battery connected inverter. It's just export limitation that will be possible with multiple devices. And also, obviously, that one battery inverter can draw energy from any additional devices on the AC side. But no, unfortunately, still it's one battery-enabled device per site.
Okay, thank you. Gareth is asking, can you advise on the size, the dimensions of the new auto changeover switch? If you haven't got them to hand, then we'll be able to send them out.
Unfortunately, I don't have a tape measure to hand right but I think we're looking at about 400 mil by 400. We do have PDF documents which we can send out after the call with the technical details of that. So we'll certainly send that across, not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Richard is asking, can SIMO Gen24 couple with snappy inverters?
So yes, we can have a Gen24 and a snappy on the same site, and I think we saw from Cortec they've done this a number of times. The very first photo you see on the screen now shows one Gen24 with all those batteries connected, 2 stacks of batteries, and then 3 snappy inverters in this instance. And that Gen24 is drawing the energy, the surplus energy from all those other inverters, and able to dump that into the battery. So yes, you can certainly mix and match. And with the firmware update, you'll also be able to do the export limitation of those snap inverters as well. Great,
thank you. Can you advise on the cost of the auto changeover switch, please?
Yes, so these this first batch of units will be available from your Fronius service account at £1,500. What we're hoping for is that we'll be able to see some ways in which we can reduce the cost a little bit for the main production product as well. But yes, £1,500 for these first devices.
Great, thank you. Next question, any overloads allowed in off-grid?
Yes, so the inverters, it varies from model to model, and the data sheets will show that you can, for 5 seconds, exceed the power class of the inverter. So typically with a 3.6 kilowatt inverter, which is a common size in the UK, we can exceed up to, I think, 4.5 kilowatts for a 5 second period. That's ideal for when you have inrush currents, for example, or switching motors.
Okay, thank you. Next question from James. For off-grid operation in areas with very unreliable grid, what is the maximum off-grid duty cycle that is acceptable?
Yes, it's a very good question. We recommend using up to 20% of the lifespan being off-grid, and obviously then 80% of the lifetime of the product being grid tied. If you're such an unreliable place, you may want to have a look at a solution which is more designed for permanent or mostly permanent off-grid solutions, such as from Victron. So we work very closely with Victron, partnering them for off-grid solutions, which may be more suitable for those sites where you're off-grid most of the time.
Great, thank you. Different James, but does the Gen24 allow for use with optimizers such as Tigo? It's T-I-G-O.
Yep. So we have a number of installers who are using Tigo optimizers with the Gen24. We have not done any specific testing or sign off on that, because we don't generally recommend or see the need for optimizers. The Gen24 Primo needs just 3 panels to reach its startup voltage. So normally, if you have a small area that's shaded, pop those 3-4 panels onto tracker 2 and the rest onto tracker 1. But as I say, yes, we have had some installers who have used the Gen24s with Tigos, and as far as I'm aware, there have not been any technical issues reported so far.
Great, thank you. Eamon's asking, is it in the pipeline to develop a firmware to allow multiple Gen24 with multiple batteries?
So yes, I know R&D are working on this, but it is taking some time. The controls required are taking some time. Unfortunately, I don't have any dates on when that may be available, but it's certainly a feature that is being focused on by our team at Fronius International.
Great, thank you. Can a 3-phase SIMO Gen24 be linked into our 42 inverters on site and control all of the export limitation needs, as we use 2 data managers at present? That's from James.
Okay, so so nice big installation there. We at initial launch, the multiple inverter export limitation will be limited to 10 devices. That will over time be increased. So the final plan is to allow up to 60 devices to be connected. But that's what with refinements to the algorithms and with testing at launch, we're recommending up to 10 devices. But there are certain workarounds that we can do for those larger installations. So certainly, I think I know the project we're discussing there, and we are working on solutions for those larger installations for sure.
Great, thank you. Ian saying that your slide with the battery compatibility with different inverters didn't show the data for the 10 kilowatt inverter. I don't know if that was just sort of on the screen, but we will share the details afterwards.
Sorry if it's cropped off the bottom of the screen. Apologies for that. It's actually almost identical to the 8 kilowatt unit. So you're looking at 6.76 kilowatts of power from a 7.6 kilowatt HVS battery, and you're looking at 7.88 kilowatts of power from a 19 kilowatt hour battery. So just under 8 kilowatts of power with that.
Lovely, thank you. We can send those details to you afterwards as well, Ian. Another question, will that be able to start induction loads in off-grid? They don't have transformers inside, so are they able to start loads like compressors or motors?
Yes, depending upon what the initial startup current is. So as I mentioned, with the 3.6 kilowatt unit, we can go up to 4.6 kilowatts of power on startup, or for a short 5-second period. Obviously, the larger the inverter, the more suitable it is for those larger loads. But if there are specific projects and specific loads, it's probably best if you send over the details and we can check those with the product management team and get some advice on specific issues there.
Great, thank you. Mike's asking, does the earthing for backup use a separate earth rod or one connected to the main earthing terminal?
So with a TNCS system, we would recommend using a separate earth rod on site. And of course, the issue is if we lost our grid connection and we have a PME system, we're potentially left without earth. So we do need to have a local earth rod on site with any of these backup options.
Great, thank you. Kate is asking, are warranties applicable if inverters are purchased from another country, for example, purchased from a UK wholesaler?
Yep, so importantly, with the Gen24 inverters, all Gen24 inverters are available with a 10-year warranty. So whether you purchase those in the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, GB, you will always get that 10-year warranty. That's made up of the first 5 years, which is a warranty plus, which includes parts, shipping to site, and a lump sum payment for maintenance works. And the second 5-year period is just for the parts, so there's without the shipping or the lump sum payment. But it's a 10-year warranty across all Gen24 inverters.
Great, thank you. I think that's all of the questions. So that was great, lots of questions. So yeah,
fantastic.
That's all of them.
Thank you. Glad to see lots of questions there. So thank you very much, Andrea, for your help there. And thanks to everyone on the webinar today. And we appreciate actually all those questions coming in. It's really, really good to get that engagement. So if you have any projects where you're looking at using the Gen24s, if you want to have any further support, please get in contact with us. Our UK-based tech support are available. Contact details are on your screen there, and we'll be happy to support you and help you with any installations that you need some additional guidance on. So all that remains to say is thank you very much for your time, and I hope you all have a really good Easter and look forward to working with you on new projects after the break. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.